radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Well, good evening. Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Yeah, man. How you doing? Today's Wednesday, April 6th, 2022. Let's do this, man. "96 days into the new year, only 269 days left. We are live from a bunker somewhere in the middle of nowhere, a total undisclosed location. But it is beautiful in here. It is. I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States. Hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black for KJCR, the Game Changer, and UnX Networks. Raise Hobbs. I am your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? How you doing? How you doing? All right. Everything is fine, folks. Everything is fine. Tonight, very special guest Don Ecker is with us for the first time. Can't believe it. Don Ecker is on my show. This is going to be amazing, so stay tuned. Don will be with us at the bottom of the hour. We rescheduled last night. Obviously, some technical difficulties went down with our software, not the internet. The software went wonky, and it did too, by the way. It went completely wonky. We worked on it after the show went down last night, and half the show, the audio version of the show was broadcasting out, but it was it just threw me for a curve, and so we shut things down. But Flat Earth Dave will be with us tomorrow night right here, okay? So no Fader night tomorrow night. We will have Flat Earth Dave with us tomorrow, and I am so happy that he was able to reschedule. So that's tomorrow night. Tonight, Don Ecker is here, and we decided with the issues that cropped up with some very expensive software, I might add. And I don't rag on anybody, so I'm not going to say who, what, or where. But man, I mean, it's expensive. It's expensive, and I'm pulling the plug. So we are going to switch over. Of all the weekends, this is the one weekend where I can't do things, and it's not just a software thing. Well, that's what's causing the change. But then there's some logistical things that have to go down here in the studio. And I've got to reconfigure computers. I got to pull a computer out. I've got to have another computer pick up some task. I've got to move the phone lines over to another computer. And there you go. And with everything that's going to go down, no less cables, though. I'm not eliminating any cables. But all that's going to go down, and I've got a full weekend in front of me that is going to be great, and I'm not canceling my weekend for this. So we will integrate this over the next week, and then probably a week from Monday, be prepared. It will be a whole new thing. So get ready for that. Everything else is staying the same as far as broadcasting and where you're going and where you're listening to. None of that changes. I'm just talking about the format, what you are going to see, how it is going to be done. All of that is going to change. And there you go. You know, my biggest concern about all of this, by the way, is that I'm moving this computer that sits over here is going to be the phone lines. But this is set up. This has a keyboard and mouse sitting in front of it. But I can't be doing this with the phones all night, right? I can't do that. So that made my biggest concern, where do I put my mouse, man? So, and I've got all these Mises over here already. There's 3 Mies. So now there's going to be 4 Mises. And, oh, man. So that's like my biggest concern. How do I increase footprint for Mies? Yeah, there you go. All right. Everybody wants their own crystal skull. Maybe their next crystal skull. Get yours from Carolyn Ford. Einstein, thecrystalskull.com. All easy to do. Just head over to jimmychurchradio.com. Click on the banners. Head over there. And when you bond, when you resonate, when you pick out that skull, just use the promo code Jimmy at checkout. That's all you got to do. 10% off of your next or first Crystal Skull order today. I will be speaking at the X Conference. It's coming up in a month. It is May 13th through the 14th. It's Friday night and Friday. I'll be speaking on Friday nights, Friday and Saturday. And just come and hang out with us. I want you to go to the unxnetwork.com. This is a completely online event. And also, Friday night, they're going to be doing a live paranormal investigation from 9 p.m. until midnight. Yeah, right after I'm done speaking. So there you go. I'll see everybody there, May 13th and 14th. Go to unxnetwork.com. Disclosure Fest is coming up, too. I can't believe it. We're in April. That's it. It's May. It's June. It's July. Everything is coming up very quickly. So next up for me, so there's one event for me in May. Coming up in June, Disclosure Fest right here in Los Angeles. And over 30 acres in downtown L.A. at the Los Angeles State Historic Park, right next to Chinatown in downtown Los Angeles. One-day event, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., 16 stages, 4 stages with music and performances by Trevor Hall is going to be there. The Desert Dwellers, man, they are just amazing. Poron Gee, even more amazing. And workshops with Billy Carson. He's going to be there. Adam Apollo in person. Lori Spani is going to be there. Laura Eisenhower. Brad Olson is going to be there. And also, are you ready? David Palmer is going to be there. Man, you know what? That's it. I'm going to get David on the show next week. Been talking to David about getting him on. I'm going to have David Palmer on the show next week. You've got to check this guy out. He's amazing. Everything you need is over at disclosurefest.org. And then coming up in October, I'll be in Egypt with Billy Carson this October. Space is very limited. We've added a second bus. That bus is filling up. That's it. We're not going to go 3 buses. We're just going 2, and that's a lot. Okay? So space is very limited. Please visit forbiddenknowledge.com. Forbiddenknowledge.com, not forbiddenknowledge.tv, forbiddenknowledge.com. Do it now for the complete schedule and info. I am going to be celebrating my birthday in Luxor. You know you want to be there for that. I want as many Fadernauts there as possible. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. At JChurchRadio. The Sandbox is hashtag F2B on Twitter. Twitter is in the news. I'll get to that in just a second. And any questions during the show, hashtag F2BQ. Let's get to the breaking news. NASA is still aiming for a June launch after a second attempt at a final test for its Artemis 1 mission to the moon was scrubbed yesterday. It's the second scrubbing over the weekend. NASA made its second attempt at what it calls a wet dress rehearsal, which simulates every stage of a launch without the rocket actually leaving the launch pad. The rehearsal is a crucial step in the first phase of NASA's Artemis program, which is expected to return humans to the moon and land the first woman and the first person of color on the lunar surface by 2025. There's no word yet on when the next attempt at a wet dress rehearsal will take place. All right. Tesla's CEO, Elon Musk, likely added $1 billion already to his already large bank account. That's right. All this happened this week after taking a 9.2% stake in Twitter. He disclosed the purchase in the Securities and Exchange Commission filing at the beginning of the week. More on this in just a bit. Sending Twitter shares soaring. The stock closed up 27% yesterday and continued to climb higher. And it's the biggest rally since its trading debut in 2013. The filing, dated March 14th. Think about that. Revealed that Musk bought about 73.5 million shares for roughly $2.9 billion. In the 1 day since he disclosed the purchase, those shares have increased in value to more than $3.8 billion. The investment also boosted the net worth of former Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey, who holds a 2.25% stake in the company, and he made about $200 million after Elon revealed his purchase. Last night, an asteroid the size of a small house flew by Earth. According to NASA's Center for Near-Earth Object Studies, asteroid 2022 GN1 passed within 79,000 miles of our planet, or about one-third of the distance between the Earth and the Moon. Although the space rock is categorized as potentially hazardous due to its close encounter with Earth, the asteroid didn't impact our planet. I don't know if you noticed that. Rocket Lab's next mission will feature some aerial action we've never seen before. That's because the California-based company is working to make its two-stage Electron rocket partially reusable. The plan calls for snatching falling Electron's first stages out of the sky with a helicopter. That's right after launch. A dramatic step that Rocket Lab will attempt for the first time on its next mission, which is scheduled to lift off no earlier than April 19th. Let's get the show cracking. Happy birthday to today. Paul Rudd, 53. Zach Braff is 47. Michael Rooker today is 67. Billy D. Williams is 85 and accepts Udo Dirkschneider. Man, he is 70 years old. Drummer Johnny D is 59. Right now he's playing with Doro Pesch. Got fame in Britney Fox. And the Allman Brothers guitarist Warren Haynes today is 62. All right. Our dead guy's birthday today is Anita Pallenberg. 1942 to 2017, died at the age of 75. Anita was a style icon and it girl of the 1960s and 70s and was credited as the muse of the Rolling Stones. She was a romantic partner with Brian Jones and later, from 1967 to 1980, Keith Richards, with whom she had 3 children, and also had a secret affair with Mick Jagger. Pretty much all at the same time. Jagger respected her opinion so much that tracks on Beggar's Banquet were remixed after she bagged on them. In the 2002 compilation release of 40 Licks, Pallenberg is credited as singing background vocals on Sympathy for the Devil. Anita died on June 13, 2017 at the age of 75 due to complications from hepatitis C. Happy birthday, Anita. Man. On this day in history, OTD. 1968. One of the biggest days of the 20th century. 2001: A Space Odyssey is released in theaters. Today, we know the greatness of 2001, and it's regarded as one of the defining films of the 20th century. But on the night of its debut, Stanley Kubrick felt that he failed. That's right. On this day in 1968. Fact or fact? Okay, here you go. This is disturbing. Fact or fact? Freshwater snails. Okay? Let me repeat that. Freshwater snails are among the deadliest creatures on the planet. They carry and transmit a parasitic disease called, are you ready? Schistosomiasis, which affects more than 230 million people worldwide. And it is second only to malaria as the most devastating parasitic disease. Fresh water snails. Right? There you go. You're not going to be picking up one anytime soon, are you? Tonight, very special guest Don Ecker is with us. And it's an honor and a privilege to have Don on the show. Tomorrow night, rescheduled from last night, is Flat Earth Dave. He will be joining us tomorrow night on Thursday. No Fader night tomorrow. Tomorrow, it's Flat Earth Dave. Now it's time for me to hit this River Moon coffee. Rivermoonwellness.com. Fade to Black blend. I like my coffee dark. I do. Like this. Oh. All right. Years ago, someone labeled me the king of conspiracy. I didn't do it. Somebody else did. And it's true. I love a good conspiracy. I think we all do. I've done shows over the years. I have listed crazy conspiracies. I have gone over that. Things that have gone either way. I've done, well, trip on this. On March 24th, Elon Musk tweeted a poll on Twitter about Twitter. And he asked this: Twitter algorithm should be open source? ? Followed by the poll. The final results: yes, 82.7%. No, 17.3%. With 1,117,574 votes. A day later, on March 25th, Elon Musk tweeted another poll. That's right, on Twitter, about Twitter. And he says, free speech is essential to a functioning democracy. Do you believe Twitter rigorously adheres to this principle? The consequences of this poll will be important. Please vote carefully. The final results of the poll were, with 2,035,924 votes were, yes, 29.6%, no, 70.4%. Then, a day later, on March 26th, Elon tweeted this: given that Twitter serves as the de facto public town square, failing to adhere to free speech principles fundamentally undermines democracy. What should be done? Is a new platform needed? That was the tweet. A tweet made headlines. You saw the tweet. Now, on the surface, it sure looks like Elon has a real concern about free speech, the internet, and specifically Twitter. Now, the responses to this flurry of Twitter action occurred over 3 days, March 24th, March 25th, and March 26th. We're only on April 6th. This went down a week ago. Now, those responses were all sending him the same messages. Elon, the savior. Right? Elon, the bringer of truth. Elon, buy Twitter. Elon, start your own platform. Elon, free speech. Elon. And it got heated. So, what does Elon do? Well, he appeared this week to respond to his 80 million followers on Twitter and the rest of the world. When it was announced this week, those tweets went down last week. This week, the SEC announced that he is now the largest shareholder in Twitter. All of this after his post that started back on March 24th. Sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? Right? Of course it does. Well, as it turns out, Elon made his move for Twitter back on March 14th, a full 10 days before his Twitter posts. That's right. Now, let's think about this for a moment. You need to understand exactly what I am saying here. Those 80 million Twitter followers watching those posts on the 24th, 25th, and 26th are seeing this and responding to it. What they don't know as they're responding to this and the polls and the man, it was insane. What they didn't know was that a week before, Elon made a play. 10 days before. 10 days before, 73.5 million shares were purchased. And then he does the Twitter. Think about this. That SEC filing dated March 14th revealed March 14th that he bought 73.5 million shares for roughly $2.9 billion. Then he does the Twitter for 3 days. Gets everybody talking. Gets the market freaked out. Everybody's wondering what's going to happen. And then right after that, today's only Wednesday. On Monday, it is announced that he's now got the largest stakehold in Twitter. That he just dropped $3 billion. He pumped up the market. He knew that back on March 14th, he had just purchased 73.5 million shares. He didn't tell anybody. He could have said on March 24th, 25th, 26th, hey, I just filed with the SEC. I bought 73.5 million shares. Do you think I should make changes around here? Oh, that would have been cool. No, he doesn't do that. He runs two polls and then talks about democracy and the freedom of speech in the third tweet. Then the SEC makes this announcement. When all of this went down, and if you think about this, March 14th is the purchase, March 23rd, 24th, 25th, 26th are the Twitter flurry and the responses and everything that went down. And then the announcement on Monday, everything is pumped up, everything is insane. Elon, by the end of the day, made $1 billion. Think about that. And the money continues. about that. All pumped up by his flurry of Twitter posts. Now, for me, this is a conspiracy I can sink my teeth into. And I would think that the SEC, knowing that the filing happened on March 14th. Now, I like Elon, Tesla, SpaceX. I do. This is a little bit stinky. And I would think that the SEC would go, wait a minute. Okay, so this happened on March 14th. He's out using his 80 million Twitter followers to cause and affect something with a company that he just purchased a controlling interest in. And then the announcement's going to go down on Monday. And by Monday, with everything that's going on, suddenly he makes $1 billion before close of business Monday night. It doesn't quite feel right. Feels strange to me. So yeah, the king of conspiracy. I like a good conspiracy, and I think that this one, I think Elon stepped in it. I do. I went back and compiled all of his tweets from today about Twitter going back to March 14th. March 14th, the key date, March 14th, he is filing paperwork with the SEC that he's about to purchase 73.5 million shares of a company like Twitter and drop $3 billion. He doesn't mention it on March 14th, March 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th, 20th. There doesn't mention anything. Leading up to the announcement on this Monday, he goes crazy on Twitter and posts those 3 tweets. Think about that. Man, this is Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, right here on this program, Don Ecker. Don Ecker will be with us right after this short break. Yes, last night we had to reschedule Flat Earth Dave. Flat Earth Dave will be with us tomorrow night, Thursday. No Fader night tomorrow. Tomorrow it's Flat Earth Dave. As we discuss, is Flat Earth still a thing? This is Fade to Black on the Game Changer and UnX Networks. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Be right back after this short break with Don Ecker. Stay right there.
This is Nicole Church, daughter of you-know-who, and you're listening to Fade to Black on JimmyChurchRadio.com and the Game Changer Network.
You're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the X.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net.
Introducing the Game Changer blend from Rivermoon Coffee that delivers a customized blend made specifically for the Fadernauts. If the game is rigged, change the game. It's a bolder cup with some bite. Game Changer is the coffee of choice for those that prefer an organic dark roast that is slightly lighter and milder, but it's still dark. With wild notes of pecans and chocolate with a rich, balanced, full-bodied cup that is roasted to perfection for a great coffee to start your day, as an after-dinner coffee or anywhere in between. Artisan, small batch roasted to perfection. USDA certified organic, all Rivermoon coffee is freshly roasted and packaged in the USA. Just go to rivermooncoffee.com or click on the banners over on our site and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. rivermooncoffee.com.
This is the only way forward.
This is Fade to Black. Make contact.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can get our podcast for just $2 per month. All you have to do is click on the podcast banner over at jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, folks. It's troubling times, and fear is pushing emotions, which in turn pushes health the wrong direction. Do you ever get an ache because life is uneasy? Try Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. Life Change Tea works on your digestive tract, helping to move food through quicker and comfortably so your health is spot on. Life Change Tea may not help with world issues, but it will help with your digestive issues. A glass a day helps keep the intruders away. So, change your life today. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. If your health game is off, get on by ordering Life Change Tea. Getthetea.com. And while you're on our site, look around at the great non-GMO organic supplements. And if you're a sales shopper, go to our specials page and see what's for you. I've been drinking the tea for 12 years and I'm sure glad for its health benefits. Again, that's getthetea.com. Getthetea.com. The tea that makes you go.
Do you have an interest in the paranormal? Then you'll love the unxnetwork.com. The X is your streaming audio and video for everything supernatural, strange, and mysterious, like UFOs, Bigfoot, ghosts, and so much more. From hosts like Jimmy Church, Whitley Strieber, Micah Hanks, and Christina Gomez. Visit the unxnetwork.com show page for a complete list of all the paranormal programs you'll find on the X. Be sure to follow us on Twitter for updates at KUNXDB. Follow our Facebook group, UnX Network. Find the podcast on Spotify, iHeart, Audible, and Apple Podcast. It's time. It's new. It's the X.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Commentator. You're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Don Ecker is with us. I can't believe I'm going to actually say this, but for the first time, Don Ecker is with us. It's an honor and a privilege. He's a writer, researcher, commentator, and was the director of research and media liaison for UFO Magazine for 20 years. Former law enforcement officer and criminal investigator with over 10 years' experience, he brought legitimacy to UFO research. He has written numerous articles for UFO Magazine, the United Kingdom's Fortean Times, Omni, the Compuserve System, and the ParaNet Computer Data Base. Man, we're going to talk about some ParaNet tonight. Don has utilized as a technical advisor for Larry King Live on CNN, NBC's Hard Copy, has advised and appeared on Fox's A Current Affair, Fox's Sightings, and Oprah Winfrey. He has appeared on Fox's Encounters and Entertainment Tonight. Today, he is the host, of course, of Dark Matters Radio, which is broadcast right here on the UnX Network, KUNX, Friday evenings, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m., or 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern. And I would like to welcome for the first time to Fade to Black, the one and only. Well, it's an honor. Don Ecker.
Great to be here, Jimmy. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, thank you, Don. And, well, you know, you get the first-time guest disclaimer. I can't believe I'm going to do this with Don Ecker. Don, it's just you and I sitting on my couch having a conversation. And where that conversation starts, it starts. Where it ends. But we're going to end as friends. There you go. And, wow. So I kind of want to start here, Don. I've been at this for quite a long time. Not only broadcast, but research. But you were a big part of my journey. And I'm sure you don't get tired of hearing that because you have seriously guided so many, and I'm just one of them. But I want to ask you, before I ask the obvious question, how did you get your interest in this? But let's rock this thing back 30 years. And your perception of what UFOs, today UAP, what UFOs may be, and today, what was your perception back then? What did you think that UFO hypothesis really was?
Well, it basically broke down into only two areas for me then, Jimmy. Number one, and I'm out here in Southern California, just a skip, hop, jump from Nevada. I could be down to the old Lockheed Skunk Works in about 10 minutes, where they used to be in Burbank.
Right.
I've been out to Area 51, where a lot of their stuff ended up going. Things like the F-117, stealth fighter, stuff like that. It's we're in a nexus here. Well, I figured that UFOs, and I had no doubt that there was something there. I've had sightings. I've had, as a matter of fact, a really dramatic sighting in 1966. But they were either from somewhere else or they were ours. That was my then thinking. And I thought they were strictly nuts and bolts. Okay. But over the years, my thinking has evolved immensely. And when I was in college, I was a historian. And that was my major, was history. I loved history then. I love history now. And I especially loved ancient history. Well, as I'm sure you're aware, and probably everybody else listening to my voice tonight, these things have been, whatever they are, have been seen for literally as long as there have been people to look up in the sky.
Mm-hmm.
So that tells me that they've been around a long time, a very long time. And so then that, to me, meant, well, where would they be coming from? Was it just the idea that they might be coming from another star system, or are there other possibilities? Well, I eventually came to the conclusion that there are a number of possibilities of what they could be. Number one, of course, the interstellar hypothesis. Number two, and this gets a little stickier, but once again, there seems to be enough data to support the hypotheses that they, in fact, or some of them may be interdimensional. And then there's one more possibility in my thinking that I haven't heard discussed a lot, but this is something that I've toyed with for quite a few years now. Roughly 12,000 years ago, Jimmy, North America, if you could walk through a doorway and walk into North America, let's say, for example, 11,500 BCE, okay, before the Common Era, this continent was covered in up to 2 miles of ice, okay, ice. And that meant that there was a tremendous amount of land then available that we no longer have, because when the ice caps receded, the oceans rose, okay, as much as 200 to 400 feet, which covered up immense swaths of land. Climate change out the yin-yang, okay. Whatever peoples were here, I am sure, suffered some catastrophic deaths and events. Obviously not all of them, because you and I are here today, right?
Right.
But there also is indications that there was then a worldwide civilization. If you're familiar with things like the Piri-Reis map, okay, the Piri-Reis map, which shows what Antarctica looked like without the ice, all right, obviously from an aerial view, well, how in the world would that have happened? Well, it would have happened if somebody here had the technology to fly. So, my other hypothesis of what some of these things could be is an ancient, lost civilization that abandoned the planet when these catastrophic Earth changes happened, and then very possibly ended up coming back, but for whatever reason, their own reasons, they've decided not to make themselves available today. So there are my three hypotheses. Number one, an ancient Earth civilization that left and came back. Number two, possibly interdimensional entities. And number three, extraterrestrial beings from another star system.
It could be all three too.
Sure.
It could be all three. And I agree with all of that. And here's the other part where I kind of want to pick your brain. Because of your background in law enforcement and your, I'm just going to use the word methodology, right? How your mind works. You were around when, we don't need to mention names, I'm not going to go there, but you were around when there were a lot of colorful individuals making I can say claims, but also just some pretty bold statements. And the UFO community not having answers, and with the rest of the world, you have to consider everything.
First off, let me say this, Jimmy. I don't believe in cop-outs. Okay?
Right.
If you're gonna make mention of something like this, now, one of the people that immediately comes to my mind, and I was the very first person to do an expose on him, a person that still today creates tremendous controversy, was a guy by the name of Milton William Cooper, who did more harm to this field than any other 25 people around. And believe me, we've had some doozies around.
And so to my point, and we can talk about Bill, is this. You stood in between the mucky muck and the UFO community trying to keep things centered and focused. And was that because of your law enforcement background and you could look,
I was in the Army. I was in the armed forces. I did 2 tours in Southeast Asia. Okay. I was wounded twice in combat.
Right.
And the bottom line is this. When you're in an endeavor like this, the only way it works is through teamwork. And the one thing that this field has never had is teamwork. Everybody in the field over the last 30 years, the jealousy, the backbiting, the backstabbing, I mean, I've seen it all. And back in 2006, when my wife, who was the originator, the original publisher, and the creator of UFO Magazine, when she and I left the field, in large part, it was because of that very thing. And I wrote a paper called My 20 Years in the UFO Fog, which is out there online. Have you read it?
I have, of course.
Okay, well then you know what I'm talking about. Now, I said, that's it. It's been great. Thanks, gang. I'm gone. But obviously, I didn't leave entirely. I stayed with the radio thing. And yes, I guess you can say I've done some more work over the years. As a matter of fact, right now, I'm working on a paper with the recent death of John Lear. I knew Lear back from 1987. Okay. I've been to Lear's house. On a personal level, I like John. On a professional level, I thought John was out to lunch, okay? But he was a gracious man. He could also be an SOB, okay? Believe me, I have some stories, and I have stories about a lot of people in this field. But John Lear was actually one of the reasons I originally got into this field. Now, back in 1980-81, while I was a criminal investigator, I ended up investigating 2 cattle mutilations. This was in the state of Idaho. And that was a journey that began me down some very bizarre paths, let me tell you. But one of the bizarre paths I ended up going down. Now, like I said, I knew everybody at the time worth knowing. I knew people like Bruce Maccabee, Linda Moulton Howe, Stanton Friedman, John Lear, obviously, William Moore, Jamie Chandra. These are all names from the past that many people today may not even know who they are. But at the time, they were some of the leading lights in the field. And one of the people that I had occasion to meet and I became friends with, and the guy is actually a very legendary character, was John Keel. Mm-hmm. Now, John Keel of the Mothman Prophecy fame, I forget how we bumped into each other, but I was telling him about this case that I had been the lead investigator on, these cattle. And it was, let me tell you what, man, it was a spooky, spooky case. And then Keel said something to me that kind of sent the hair up the back of my neck. And at first I thought he was putting me on. But he said, "Did you come across any human mutilations?"
Ooh, right.
And then he told me about, I think it was 2 cases that he was familiar with, and that piqued my curiosity, which led me on a 3-year odyssey into trying to track that down. And for 3 years, I bashed my head on a brick wall. And incidentally, this is no BS. This is a absolutely true story. In 1986 is when, as a police officer, I was injured and I ended up medically retiring. So in 1988, I was going back taking some college courses, and one of the guys, and it was a guy I knew, one of the guys in one of my classes was a detective with the Boise PD. And one of my closest buddies I had been a police officer with and a partner was with a sheriff's department. And so as I'm doing some research and I'm trying to make some sense out of this human mutilation story, a guy that I knew who was then the MUFON state director for the state of Idaho came to me and he said, "Hey, Don," he said, "I've got something here that popped up on my radar." He said, it's weird, it's spooky. And he said, "I don't know, man, it might be dangerous, but I can't say." And I said, his name was Don Mason. And I said, "Don, get to the point." I mean,
right.
What's going on? He said, a couple of hikers, hunters, they were hunters. And of course, Idaho is a very hunter-heavy state. And he said they stumbled over a nude body, human body, in the woods, just wearing a pair of underwear. And the guy was, and it was a male, the guy was mutilated, supposedly just like a cow. And I said, "No, wait a minute, you're telling me what? You're telling me that an eyeball was taken out, that his rectum and sexual organs were removed?" He said, "Well, that's what I was told." So I said, okay. So I tried to track that down more in depth, and everything was extremely hush-hush. So anyway, my buddy from Boise, from the Boise PD, and my other buddy from one of the sheriff's departments there, I went to both of them individually. And I said, look, I said, I'm working on something. And yeah, you know, I don't have a badge anymore. But I said, look, I want you to do me a favor, if you will. I want you to check out the National Crime Information Computer back in D.C., which is handled by the Department of Justice, the FBI. And this is a search criteria that I would like you to put in, including the states of Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Montana, and Nevada. Okay? Any unexplained homicides or suspected homicides where the bodies are mutilated, and I gave him some of the criteria for that. And my buddy at Boise PD said, yeah, he said, I can do that. He said, well, what is it you're looking for? Well, I told him a little bit. He said, okay, that's enough. I don't want to know any more about it. But he said, I'll do this. And he did. And my buddy at the sheriff's department, same thing. And I asked the guy at Boise, I said, look, how long do you think it'll take to get back? He said, probably a week. He said, I wouldn't think it would be much over a week. Okay. Well, he got back to me in 3 days. And he looked me in the eye and he said, you trying to get me fired? And I said, what are you talking about? He said, my lieutenant called me in, just steaming mad. He said he chewed me up one side down the other. And I said, why? Well, he got a call from somebody back in D.C. about this. I said, really? He said, yeah. He said, so whatever you're involved with, I want nothing else to do with it. Now, my buddy at the sheriff's department didn't quite get that, okay? But he got shut down. They said there was nothing there that was popping up, which I knew was pure BS, because if you know anything about the the crimes that were happening in that part of the world then, and I'm talking late 80s, okay, have you ever heard of a case called the Green River Killer?
Of course, yes.
Okay, well, that was a guy that was out hunting in Washington state prostitutes. And he would lure them to his vehicle under the pretext of having sex. And then he would take them out, murder them, and then try to conceal the body and mutilate them. He mutilated them too. So I knew if nothing else, some of those cases should have popped up, and they never did. So I talked to John Keel again about this. And then I was notified by somebody back in, and I ended up doing a big story in UFO Magazine about this. It came across my desk that one of the things back in, well, actually all over the country, but New York at the time was primary, the number of missing kids that was astronomical. Now, this is circa about 1993. The kids were just disappearing. Now, hey, granted, a lot of kids were running away from home. Kids were, getting tossed out of school, saying the heck with it, taking off, whatever. Kids getting involved with drugs. But a lot of these kids sooner or later would pop back up. But thousands and thousands weren't. And I ended up doing this story, and I included those statistics, and today I can't remember anymore what they were. But I recall a case that had happened in the, what the heck was that area around Long Island, New York, where a couple of people ended up dead and in the morgue with, and this, I remember this vividly. This came, as a matter of fact, from a court officer that I talked to, with strange markings on them. And then the freaking body disappeared from the morgue. What? Now, that is something they don't talk about, okay? They don't talk about that kind of thing. Bodies disappearing from the morgue. Are you kidding me?
It's a first for me, yes.
Yeah. So anyway, it was a very bizarre journey. And finally, I just said, you know what? I don't think I'm getting anywhere with this, and I ended up dropping it. And
I want to go back to John Keel. I've just got a minute, Don, before the break. And did John have a theory of the human mutilations and possibly with the paranormal, or for him it could be anything, the occult?
Yep, he did.
And what was it?
Ultra-terrestrials, which is another way of saying interdimensional. Now, if you know anything about John Keel, and I'm sure you do, and if you know anything about his book, The Mothman Prophecies, I read that for the first time, and I've since read it maybe 24 times. Keel was very involved with what he termed the MIB phenomena. And he believed, and he told me this, that he thought that these were constructs being manufactured by someone or something utilizing the blood and the flesh from mutilated animals and people. Now, take that for what it's worth. I'm not saying I subscribe to it, but that's what he told me.
Let's take our break right here. This is Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, Don Ecker. We've got a lot to cover, and we're going to try to get it all in. It's an honor and a privilege to have Don with us. You stay right there. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer and UnX Networks. This is Fade to Black. We'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network.
Your 1 million gigawatt paranormal powerhouse, KUNX-DB, the X.
This is Billy Carson, founder and CEO of ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. ForbiddenKnowledge.tv is the fastest growing and one of the most watched networks in the world. I would like to personally invite you to check out our expanding library of TV, film, lectures, and special presentations. ForbiddenKnowledge.tv has over 6,000 videos covering lost history, health, UFOs, spirituality, and our future. We are committed to our community, and with my personal invitation, you can, right now, get your free 30-day membership at ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Your own library of information starts today at ForbiddenKnowledge.tv.
Because you never got that pony you always wanted. Damn it. Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network.
Listen, I know, and you know, that you've always wanted your first crystal skull. Or maybe you're a collector just like me, but you just don't know where to go to find the real thing. Then I met Carolyn Ford over at EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com. Carolyn is the guardian of Einstein, one of the most respected ancient crystal skulls in the world. All of her unique skulls have been imprinted sitting with Einstein in his sacred lodge and are carved from the finest gemstone and materials. Imprinting is the process of receiving the ancient wisdom from the master skull or master computer, Einstein, the ancient crystal skull. To see Carolyn's current collection of crystal skulls, just visit her store at EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com or click on the banner over on our site. Don't forget to use the promo code Jimmy at checkout to receive 10% off of your order today. That's promo code Jimmy. Finding your first or next crystal skull is easy. Just visit EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com.
Hi, Race Hobbs with the X. Obviously, if you're listening to this, you have an interest in unexplained phenomena like ghosts, Bigfoot, and UFOs. And by now, you know that we have our own X blog, the UnX newsletter, and the UnX Magazine Quarterly. But most of you don't know that we have started our very own paranormal conference. And this year, for safety, this 2-day XCon will be virtual, so you can attend from the comfort of your home. XCon presenters include Whitley Strieber, Micah Hanks, Margie Kay and Preston Dennett, Lisa Martin and Wayne Lawrence, Lee Spiegel, Debbie Zagelmeyer, Dan Terry, Kate Grabowski, and Ray Hernandez. There will also be a live paranormal investigation by the Riverside, Iowa Paranormal Team. So come hang out with us in the safety of home as we set out to explain the unexplained Friday, May 13th and Saturday the 14th, 2022. And tickets are on sale now. Go to unxnetwork.com. That's unxnetwork.com.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Race Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to jimmychurchradio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. We're of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can become an official Fadernaut by just going to our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com.
Hello, this is Serena Wright-Taylor from Conscious Life Expo, and you're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church, who holds the Lucky Pony record for the best astrological chart since 1963. True story.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Don Ecker is with us. It's going to be one of those conversations tonight, everybody. Just kick back and absorb. I'm going to learn something. And I'm going to jump straight back into it, Don. I wanted to ask you this. Today, where it seems that the subject is still laughed at, of course, but it's easier to talk about today, and it's out there in the media and Washington and the Department of Defense, what have you. But when you were, UFO Magazine was a mainstream publication. I could pick it up anywhere. I got it. I found it. It was slickly produced, and it was mainstream. But back then, did you feel like you were fighting the man? Were you pushing and for acceptance to get this out there?
Oh, yeah. I believed back in the very early 90s, 90, 91, 92. And I truly did. I truly believed that with just the right case, with the right investigation. You see, and this has always been with many people who called themselves investigators, would hear some slick story, and it excited them, it intrigued them. They would jump on board. One of the things that very few people did was to research these stories out. And as a matter of fact, my paper that I wrote that you just told me you read, 20 Years in the UFO Fog, I pointed that out, that there are people out there. And when I was doing director of research for UFO Magazine, I had a series of exposés that I did in the magazine, exhaustively researched. I couldn't tell you how many people I interviewed about these stories. And some of these guys that were making a quote-unquote splash in the field that were as full of you-know-what as a Christmas turkey.
Mm-hmm.
And we would expose them, and a couple of years later, they'd be back in the fold. Now, one of the guys that I did this expose series on was a guy that, and I'll be very honest, initially he bamboozled me good. A guy by the name of Guy Kirkwood. That was one of his names, Guy Kirkwood. Noel Bryce Cornwall, and hell, he had a couple other names too that he went by. But he had been, back in the 50s, a Fuller brush salesman and a dance instructor, okay, in a dance studio. And his story was that he had been an F-86 Saberjet pilot in the Air Force that had been based out of Utah, okay, and their unit was tasked when UFOs would be reported, show up, they would go up, try to catch them on radar, photograph them, et cetera, et cetera. This was his shtick, all right? Well, I met him down in San Diego at some event. Somebody introduced me to him, and they said, man, this is somebody you got to talk to, Don. You got to do a story on this guy in UFO Magazine. So I sat down with him, we talked, and he was charming, he was great, friendly guy. I mean, of course, all con men are.
Right.
And I said, Guy, because he was going by Guy Kirkwood, I said, Guy, I'll tell you what, I would love to do an article on this, but I just request one thing. Okay, what's that, Don? A copy of your DD-214, your military discharge papers.
Bingo.
And I said, you show me that, and by God, we're off to the races. Well, I waited a year for this guy to get back in touch with me. And he lived here in the area, okay? And finally, I bumped into him. I think it was at a MUFON event. And I asked him, I said, Guy, where you been? I've been waiting to hear from you. Where are your DD-214 at? And he gave me some cock and bull story. Well, then he showed up on a TV program with Linda Moulton Howe. And Linda was touting his quote-unquote extraordinary military background. Guy had never been in the service, by the way.
No, Fuller brush. Well, there's a connection there with F-86s. I just don't know what it is.
Yeah, really. So anyway, then I had a call at the magazine from Don Dornan. Do you know who Don Dornan is?
I do. Man, this is great. This is great stuff. This is great stuff. Continue.
Now, Don Dornan was the brother of B-1 bomber Bob Dornan, the congressman. Okay? And Don Dornan had been a photographer and a journalist with Look magazine.
That's right.
Back in the 60s. And he knew all about Guy Kirkwood. And he said, I'd like to meet you for lunch. I said, okay. So my wife, Vicki, and I met him for lunch, and we must have spent 4 hours. And he brought me, as a matter of fact, I still have it. It's still under my office desk in my home office. He brought me a package of photographs. The story that he told me where he followed Guy Kirkwood down to Mexico, over the border, to meet with this guy down there who was originally from Italy, had come over here either during or right after World War II. The guy supposedly had been working on a death ray for Benito Mussolini. I mean, It was one hell of a story. So I said, okay. So I ended up doing this major expose on Guy. And I said, this guy, number one, stolen valor irritates me quite a bit, okay? It really does. Guys claiming that they were in the armed forces and they did this, did that. It was a huge phenomenon in the aftermath of Vietnam, which really is curious considering how the GIs that went to Vietnam and came home were treated, all right, by the public at large. But anyway, I don't want to get sidetracked there. So I had this thing all ready to go. I had the proofs. And I called up Guy Kirkwood and I said, Guy, I'd like you to please stop by the office. I have something here that I'm going to run in the magazine, but I want you to see it first. I'm not going to run it if you bring me a copy of your DD-214. Well, he didn't, but he did come. And I handed it to him. And I said, would you like a cup of coffee? And I don't think he wanted one. So I poured myself a cup and I sat down and waited till he read it. And he just folded the stuff up and he handed it to me and he said, thanks, bye. And he got up and he left. Well, we ran it. And then there were a couple of quote unquote names in the UFO field that immediately started picking at me for doing this expose on this wonderful former, jet pilot, blah, blah, blah. And the thing ran. People once again were aware of the malarkey involved with this fellow because he had already been exposed in the 60s with Don Dornan and Look magazine. But time passes, people forget. Let's face it, Jimmy, most people don't have the attention span of a gnat's behind.
Especially today. It's just getting worse, not better.
So anyway, 2 years go by. And I get a call from somebody here with the local MUFON group. And they said, you're not going to believe who MUFON is going to have come in as a speaker. And I said, okay, who? Guy Kirkwood. Well, at that time, Don Waldrop was the guy running the local MUFON.
MUFON LA?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I called Don up and I asked him, I said, hey, Don, I got a question for you. Isn't MUFON always claiming they're going with the scientific method? Yeah. And I said, well, how can you guys in good faith have this fella come by? He's a proven hoaxer. Well, Don, we only stay in business because people pay tickets to come in and see our speakers, and we got to have somebody they'll come and see. Okay. Well, that answers my question. Very good, thanks. So, that's what you're dealing with.
The other part about this is when we fast forward to today, to 2022, and certainly the movement that has happened since December of 2017, right, with the New York Times and the article and everything that has transpired since then. Lots of names have established themselves. But aside from that, we have a brand new generation of folks out there that are interested in this subject for the first time because of what the coverage in the media, and they may have had an interest in it, but now they are here. But they haven't gone through what I've gone through and you have gone through over the last 30 or 40 years. What advice do you give to them as they start to dip their toe into this serious rabbit hole?
Honestly, don't. Okay? don't. But if you can't stay away, there are a few books out there that I strongly recommend. One of them is by Barry Greenwood and, Ray, the name is escaping me. It was called the UFO. What? Come on, Jimmy, help me out.
I'm looking it up right now. I have it in the other room, but I can't get up.
I have it in the other room too.
I can't go and get it.
But it just so happens I've got several other books here too.
You're talking about Larry Fawcett.
Fawcett, yes.
Yeah, Larry Fawcett, Clear Intent.
I got a couple of other books here too that if you can find them, I strongly recommend you get them and read them. And a lot of these you may be able to pick up on Amazon. One, and this book figured prominently in my many years of research on lunar phenomena, and it's titled, see if you can see it here. You got it? Can you see it? No.
There. It was there.
Somebody Else is on the Moon by George Leonard. Now, this was a book that came out in about 1976. George Leonard was a science writer. He was a personal friend with a number of scientists and technicians at NASA during the Apollo program. And on the side, in the early days, right after they shut down the Apollo program in '72, he was shown a series of photographs that had been taken by the Apollo astronauts on 11 and 12 and, the ones that made it there. Obviously not 13. We almost lost that one. But it shows genuinely some mysterious and even scary things on the surface of the moon. Not all of it on the side that faces us, but a lot of it on the rear side that we never see from Earth. And as a matter of fact, I had a contact that out here, I was a ham radio operator, and a buddy of mine who was a ham radio operator that had just retired from one of the major banks here in Los Angeles, had himself a couple of ham radio buddies that were NASA technicians over at JPL. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but JPL also has a photo archive, or did, they probably still do, of lunar photographs. And my buddy Bill talked to one of his pals, and he said, hey, would it be possible for you to bring over a whole sheaf of those photographs and just let me go through them? And I'd love to see them. And the guy ended up doing that. He brought over a stack of photographs about 6 or 8 inches high. Mm. And he called me up, and I went up to his house. He wasn't that far from me. And we started going through those and scanning them. And I discovered a photograph in there that I sat on for years, where it clearly showed a pipe going through a lunar crater, and you could literally follow the pipe on the surface and it overhung like a cliff, or I don't know what it was, but it was a cliff you wouldn't want to fall over. And there was an extension on the end of this pipe. Now, I sat on that. I never released that until 2014. And in 2014, I had been hired as a research producer on a show that aired on the anniversary of the Apollo 11 touchdown, 2014. It aired July 20th from the Sci-Fi Channel. And the title of the program is kind of schlocky, but they did have some good information in there, including my photograph, along with some crap. But it was called The Truth Revealed, Aliens on the Moon. Do you remember that?
I do, of course.
Well, that's where I showed this photograph for the first time. And so there's no doubt in my mind that, there's something very unusual up there. Now, over the years, and I had been invited to give a talk in Bordentown, New Jersey, a number of years ago by a guy by the name of Pat Marcatilio. He knew about my lunar research, and of all people, I didn't know him at the time, took a train down to see what I had to say, was the guy that designed the protocols for the Stargate program, Ingo Swann. Now, Ingo and I became friends, and when his book, Penetration, came out, I was one of the first to get a copy of it, and I sat down and I read it. And have you ever read that book?
I haven't read that particular book by Ingo, no.
Well, in there is one of the weirdest stories that I've ever come across in all the years that I've been involved in this field. Believe me, I came across some weird stories. But this story involved apparently an extremely covert intelligence agency that hired Swann incommunicado for, well, not quite a week, paying him $1,000 a day to come to an undisclosed site and to conduct a remote viewing session on an undescribed target. Well, the target ended up being the moon. And Ingo Swann saw something that scared him so bad, it knocked him out of the remote viewing session. He stumbled over, this is the way he described it to me, because he came out here to Burbank, I guess it was about 10 years or so ago, and we got together for dinner one night at a little Italian restaurant over in Burbank, a really great little restaurant. We had about a 4.5, 5 hour dinner party.
I have to ask, what restaurant? I know every Italian restaurant in Burbank.
Oh, you do? Okay. What the hell?
Monte Carlo's?
No. The market, my wife could tell you.
On Lankershim?
No, it was on San Fernando.
Oh, it's on San Fernando. Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Continue.
I think they might have shut down because of the pandemic. I'm not sure. I haven't been over. But at any rate, if you're interested, I'll ask my wife. She'll give me a kick to the back of the head and she'll tell me. But anyway, we had this extraordinary dinner, and he told me about this. And then these same guys, he also, by the way, he told me that for the next 5 or 6 months, he was so disturbed by this experience, he was afraid that whatever was up there was going to track him down and literally fry his mind. Now, he told me that there's one thing that at least one group of visitors are intimidated by, and that's the human psi talent. Okay? that humans are psychic, more psychic than many of us even realize. Now, I used my psychic talent all the time when I was a cop, but I didn't call it that. It didn't hit me as that. It was my gut feeling.
Yeah, your intuition.
My intuition, my gut feeling.
Sure.
Which is actually a side talent. Well, anyway, his book, Penetration. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. Now, incidentally, this is available online if you just put it in a search engine with the title Penetration and the author's name, Ingo Swann, and you can download it. Totally free, okay? Now, somebody put it up there.
Now, Don, I have to ask you, and we're right up against a break. What did Ingo see on the moon that blew him out of that session that week?
There was an area that he saw, and he saw it from the standpoint of being up in the air, although there's no air in the moon. He was elevated. Mm-hmm. It was a number of buildings, but it was surrounded by, and the only way to describe it, the way he told me, was like a force field. A green screen surrounded this. But the weird part that he observed through this session, he saw people out there without suits on, working in the lunar dirt, doing something. This is how he described it to me. And he said as he was watching them, suddenly a number of them somehow detected his presence, and they stopped what they were doing. They looked up directly at him, and that shocked him so badly. And he felt, he told me this. As a matter of fact, hang on a sec. Honey, that restaurant we were at in Burbank with Ingo Swann.
Oh, Market City Cafe?
Market City Cafe.
Of course, the Market City Cafe. It's a tremendous restaurant. Tremendous. Market City Cafe, that was it. My wife just came out. So. and Don, I've got to head to a break, but I have heard this from other remote viewers, also many that have worked with Ingo. I never got a chance to interview Ingo, but that at times they were seen, right? That they were in and out, that their presence was felt by who they were remote viewing. And it sounds like that's exactly what happened with Ingo. And that would scare the crap out of somebody, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But then and I'll tell you this part after the break, but then these same guys took Ingo in a private jet up to Alaska. And what happened up there was extraordinary.
We'll talk about all of that when we come back after this short break. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Don Ecker is with us. And we're just getting started. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this short break.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
You're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the X.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and this year, June 18th, 2022, the Disclosure Fest Foundation presents the Mass Meditation Initiative. It's Saturday, June 18th from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., one day only at the Los Angeles State Historic Park in downtown Los Angeles, California, right next to Chinatown. I'm hosting the event again this year with music performances by Trevor Hall, The Desert Dwellers, Porangi, and many, many more on 4 separate stages. There's 16 stages in total, over 30 acres in downtown Los Angeles, with vendors and tents and presentations and workshops with Billy Carson, Adam Apollo, Lori Spagna, Laura Eisenhower, Brad Olson, David Palmer, and many, many more. It's all simple to do. Just go to disclosurefest.org for all of your tickets, information, and a full schedule of the day's events. Again, disclosurefest.org. Do you want to be an official Fadernaut? Of course you do. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Just go to our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com. Fadernauts. When you think about the future of our country and where we're headed, do you wonder about the food supply? I do. Disruptions in the food supply chain could be disastrous, and they usually occur with little warning. That's why the smartest thing you can do today is to stockpile emergency food, water, and other essentials. I personally recommend My Patriot Supply. They're the nation's largest emergency preparedness company, serving millions of customers for more than a decade. In fact, they're the only source my family trusts for our preparedness plan. You should too. Right now, save 20% off a full 4-week supply of delicious meals that provide 2,000 calories a day. Saving 20% helps too, doesn't it? Especially now. So go to preparewithjimmy.com and get ready. That's preparewithjimmy.com. There's no time to lose. Do it now.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Don Ecker is with us. And before we get back to it, and Don, we're going to get straight to Ingo Swann in Alaska. Okay, so, but what I'm about to say doesn't need a response. But I just want to say this, that I owe you a great debt for where I am today. It really goes that simple. And I used to, and you can laugh, okay? You can laugh. I used to go back and listen to your radio stuff and just say to myself, what's Don going to do tonight? Right? And I learned freedom of thought from you. And I'm just going to leave that right there, okay? And I just owe you a big debt, and thank you so much. Now, let's get back to Ingo Swann in Alaska. You've got my attention, sir.
Well, Ingo was an extraordinary man, and when the Stargate story broke, we at UFO Magazine got in touch with most of the identified former military personnel that were part of that program. And I've interviewed over the years a number of them. And every one that I spoke with, I asked them about Swan. Now, Ingo, of course, passed on a few years ago, back in New York. And I was very saddened when I learned about that, because when we were doing the lunar show, the moon show, the Truth Revealed show, which aired on the Sci-Fi Channel, I tried to get Ingo to come on. And he had basically pretty much at that point, now I don't know, it might have been his health, but he totally had withdrawn himself from everything. Okay, this is shortly before he passed on. Now, I was able, and not that I'm getting sidetracked, but I got to mention this guy, because if I didn't mention this guy, I'd be kicking myself all night. Right after Thanksgiving in 1995, on my original radio show, which aired on CRN, it was called UFOs Tonight. And I did the show for 5.5 years. Originally, it started on Sunday evenings, but then it was moved to Saturday night. And it's my understanding I broke up a lot of relationships because people didn't want to go out on Saturday because they went. And this is true. I mean, I'm not just, I'm not making this story up. They just loved that show so much. And I had a guy on right after Thanksgiving, 95, by the name of Vito Sicari. Now, Vito had one of the most extraordinary stories that I ever broadcast. And even to this day, when people ask me what is my most favorite popular show that I ever did, I pull a copy of Vito Sicari's show out. Now, who was he? Vito was a petrochemical engineer who later had his own business, but at the time in 78, 79, was working for another company in Houston. And they had business dealings with another American company that was based in Venezuela. Before Venezuela went all socialist commie, okay, they had a thriving oil industry down there. And one of the people that Vito had met through teletype, now remember, this is before computers, before the internet, before all of this stuff, they would communicate back and forth on teletype. And the guy's name was Lester Howes. And Lester was sent by his company up to Vito's company on some kind of deal that they were doing for the Venezuelan oil people. And but when he got up there, he said, Vito, he said, I got to tell you, I had ulterior motives for coming up here. And Vito said, what was that, Lester? And he reached into his back pocket and he pulled out a copy of George Leonard's book, Somebody Else is on the Moon. Now, when this book came out in 76, it disappeared almost as fast as it came out. Okay, it was almost impossible to find a copy of it. But he said, look, he said, I'm not even going to tell you what this is all about, but take this home tonight, read as much of it as you can, and we'll talk about it tomorrow. So the next day, Vito came back and he handed Lester his book back. And he said, yeah. He said, okay, this is a strange book. And Lester said, yeah. Now, do you know why I want to be here? I want to go over to NASA and I want to see some of those moon pictures. Well, that started them on a 3-week odyssey where NASA threatened to have them arrested for espionage. NASA, the only open federal bureaucracy, right, in the whole federal government, the open scientific NASA, and what they put those guys through was an amazing story. But anyway, that, and then what happened with Ingo Swann. Now, Ingo, after his lunar remote viewing session, was contacted by, well, the guy was going by the name of Mr. Axelrod. This was the chief honcho of this endeavor, whatever this endeavor was. And he said, Ingo, how would you like to have your remote viewing validated? Now, you see, that's the thing about remote viewing. Remote viewers will tell you that no matter how good they are, and Swann was one of the best, how often what you actually see when you're in these sessions can later be proven. Well, Ingo said, well, what is it you want to do? Well, we're going to take you on a little trip. You want to go? And obviously he said, yeah. So they took him out to an airport. They got on a small jet, and they flew to Alaska. They got up to Alaska, landed, then they got in a Land Rover or something, and they went up into the wilderness. I have no idea how far up in the country they were, but an area that was incredibly remote with a lake there. They got down to the lake, and there was Axelrod and the two, well, I call them his muscle, two guys that Ingo referred to as the twins. Now, they weren't twins, but they were both, you know, these muscular, built-up guys that looked like they could turn you into a pretzel and not try very hard. And they never, very seldom, ever spoke. Well, they got into this little, like an enclave, a little ditch or something, where they were not above ground, like somebody had dug out a pit. And Axelrod told Ingo, just watch the lake. Well, they were watching the lake. There were birds around, deer on the other side of the lake they could see, walking down to get a drink of water, that kind of thing. And suddenly, above the middle of the lake, according to Ingo, like this pillar of smoke began to appear. And as a little time went on, it expanded and expanded more and expanded more. And suddenly, there was an arrow-pointed like craft hovering above the water. And Axelrod told Swann, don't move. They can detect movement, and they can scan and detect life. And suddenly, according to Swann, this thing began firing laser bolts, or whatever they were, like lasers, all around the lake. They were hitting trees, exploding. They knocked down a deer, you know, anything that was above ground and moving, they shot. And when that happened, Ingo about had an involuntary bowel movement, as you might suspect.
I think I just did, actually.
Yeah. And he dove, and he got jammed in his calf with a stick. He later had to have some medical stuff done to it. But they watched this thing, and I forget what else now. It's been a while since I talked about this. It might have been drawing fresh water from the lake, and then poof, it was gone. They went back to the car, or the Land Rover, got into it, and he came back to the States, came back down to New York. And he was just flabbergasted. Now, he talks about that in his book Penetration, too, by the way. And that's another reason to try to get a copy of that. But very, very strange. So, as far as he was concerned, that was proof positive that they're here.
What in the description of the craft? This is coming from Ingo, right? So, this is face value, on every level. Did he describe the craft? It sounds like it was a physical.
Yeah,
it wasn't.
Yeah, it was. It came out of this. It materialized out of that. What he called smoke. Now, who knows what the heck it was? Maybe they were opening up a mini wormhole and this thing was slipping through. I'm speculating, Jimmy. I mean, I don't have any knowledge about it. But just going by what he told me, this thing suddenly materialized. It was there. It did what it did. Then I think, if I remember correctly, I'm going to have to go back and reread that part in the book again. If it did what I recall, I think it was sucking up some water from the lake, and then poof, it was gone.
Can I ask? Can I go back for a moment here?
Sure.
And talk about your sighting in 1966. First off, because it's all related, and I've had my own sightings as well. Right, where I don't know what I'm seeing. I don't have any answers. I don't think most of us do. But this thing with Ingo is very, very interesting and personal. This is his own experience. Take me back to 1966 and what happened then?
Okay, I'm originally from the East Coast. I'm from Pennsylvania, central western PA. And in 1966, I was in high school, and every year, well, at least back then, and it's probably not changed, right before the Christmas holidays, deer season opened, okay? And everybody hunted, or most everybody I knew were hunters. And deer season, when it opened, was like Christmas, Easter, and Halloween all rolled up in one. The schools even gave the first day of deer season off. So where I lived, there was a very famous railroad engineering place called the Horseshoe Curve, okay, that was built in the 1840s and 50s. And it's exactly shaped like a horseshoe. It will take you from the East Coast all the way to Chicago. As a matter of fact, during the Second World War, if the Germans would have had bombers capable of reaching the United States, that would have been one of their primary targets because of all the military equipment that was moved through there, both going east and west. But it's part of the Allegheny Mountains, and there's a lot of game up there. Well, the first day of deer season, I was with 3 of my high school buddies, and we had gone up there early in the morning. We had hunted all day long. Now, December, Pennsylvania, it gets dark early, okay? And it was a little after 4 p.m., and we were cold, we were hungry, we had been skunked all day, didn't see a thing. And we're going home, and we're coming down off the hill, and one guy was in front of me, I was next, and then there were 2 guys behind me. Suddenly, one of the guys in the rear behind me started yelling and jumping up and down. Well, my first thought was this moron saw a deer and he's going to obviously scare it off.
Right.
And I turned around to chew on his butt a little bit, and he was looking up in the sky, and I looked up, and there were 4 brilliant arc lights flying at a very leisurely pace in a diamond formation. And I have no idea how high they were. I've guessed in the past, maybe 12, 14, 15,000 feet up. But they couldn't have been going more than a couple of 100 miles an hour. And as they overflew us, suddenly the light in the rear shot straight up in the sky, just like an Atlas rocket taking off. Boom! And I mean, it was gone. And when that happened, suddenly the three lights that are now in a V formation hit a burst of speed, and they were out of sight in seconds. Now, I had no idea. I knew they weren't terrestrial aircraft.
Right.
I couldn't wait to get home, and I told my parents I was positive that it would be all over the news, and of course it wasn't. Now, at the time, I was not aware, but that was happening all across that part of the country. Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, West Virginia. That's where the famous Mothman thing happened.
Michigan.
Well, I don't remember Michigan being mentioned then. But yeah, I mean, later I've heard about accounts of these things being seen. But Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio, yeah, they were all being overflown, and it was just not covered in the news. Nobody covered it.
What do you when you this is the deal when you tell that story and you want people to understand what you're saying, right? Hopefully believe, right? But at least understand what you are saying. And then you put yourself in another perspective when we are listening to others that are trying to describe, what they saw and what they witnessed, and these things get dismissed. But you've had your own sighting, and you listen to others. What do you do with that? Do you just have to leave everything open and on the table because you've had your own?
Well, first, I got to tell you, anybody that knows me knows that I am not a guy that exaggerates, or I'm not a guy that, goes off the rails with that kind of stuff. And it happened to me. I lay it out. And if you choose to believe it, well, it's true. Mm-hmm. Good. If you don't, well, nothing I can do about that. So, I guess the easiest way to say it makes no never mind to me. Okay. That's what happened. And, there it is. So,
yeah. Just real quickly, Steve Murillo of MUFON, and Steve and I were with a group of friends, and I'm bringing this up because Steve, and Steve and I have had a few crazy things happen to us together. And I'm so thankful because he's so rational, right? I've got him next to me. But anyway, we're out in the desert one day, just kind of like what you've described right there. And Steve and I are with 5, 6, 7, 8 people out on this patio in the middle of the desert. And somebody says, wouldn't it be cool if we just saw a UFO right now? It's like 11 o'clock at night. We're eating pizza and beer and that kind of thing. And at that moment, Don, about a quarter mile away in the middle of the desert, there's nothing there. This light, it was just a light, that was it, but it went pew, like from the desert floor to the stars in like 2 seconds, what you're describing there.
Right.
And we're standing there like, did that just happen on cue? Right? On cue. It goes back to this consciousness thing that you had brought up earlier, like with John Keel, that there may be something else to this phenomenon that is directly connected to our minds. I don't know what that is, but that event with Steve and I, that happened on cue, Don. And I have no way.
Once again, back to the psi talent that we all have.
Right.
Were you familiar with my dear friend Richard Saraday, that passed away?
Yes.
Okay. Well, over the years, Rich and I had our share of adventures. And things would pop up with the magazine, and we had a very small staff. usually there were just me, my wife, Vicki, and our administrative assistant. But things would pop up, and I would have to go out and take care of it as the director of research. And Richard and I were working together then. We were working on a number of, we were trying to do some television media content. And Richard had been an extremely well-known actor back in the 70s and the 80s. For 4 years, he had starred on General Hospital, okay, and had done a lot of other things. He was in the original movie Midway with Henry Fonda and Glenn Ford and, you know, Charles Coburn and all those guys, those legendary actors. So anyway, I get a call from a guy in Vegas. And he said, this is UFO Magazine, right? Yeah. Yeah, who am I talking to? Well, this is Don Ecker. I'm the director of research. Well, I got something you got to see. Now, Jimmy, I've heard that 1,000 times.
Right.
Okay. And I said, well, okay, what is it? He said, well, it's some pictures. All right. Where did you get them? Well, I found them in a coffee table we bought at a thrift store. You found the pictures in a coffee table. Yeah, they were concealed in a leg. I said, they were what? Concealed in a leg? Yeah. So I talked a little bit more to him and I said, look, let me think about this and I'll let you know. So I called Rich up and I said, hey, what do you think? Road trip?
Yeah, Vegas? Yeah, right.
Let's do a road trip. So I called the guy up and said, okay, we'll be over on such and such a day. And the guy said, no, wait. He said, I don't want you just coming to my apartment. I want to meet you in a restaurant. Well, suddenly I got vibes of the X-Files, right? So I said, a restaurant. Oh, okay, sure. So we drive over there, and you're familiar with the drive from LA to Vegas, right?
I've done it many times. I think I'm going to do it next week, actually.
Well, we get over there to this restaurant. We go in, sit down, order a cup of coffee, and this big guy walks in wearing a jacket. He's got the jacket all zippered up. And he comes over and he looks at us and he said, are you Don? I said, yeah. Okay. Well, follow me.
Okay, Don, I got to take a break, but that's a perfect spot to do it. Right.
Okay.
There. Let's take a break. Richard Saraday and Don Ecker in Vegas is coming up next. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this short break.
Hi everybody, this is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Your 1 million gigawatt paranormal powerhouse, KUNX-DB, the X.
Are you ready to read about true paranormal events? UNX Media publishes non-fiction books about UFOs, ghosts and haunted places, time anomalies, cryptid creatures, and more. Just like KUNX-DB Radio, it's all about unexplained phenomena. Visit www.unxmedia.com to see our list of great book titles by Debbie Ziegelmeyer, Gene Walker, Devin Listrom, Wayne Lawrence, Bill Spicer, and yours truly, Margie Kay. That's unxmedia.com.
Why is it we're not very good with our health regimen until it's too late? We don't put oil in the car until the engine blows up. When the body's out of balance, your health is not so good. Give your body some love. Log on to GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com. Try our Life Change Tea, which cleanses you from harmful intruders. A clean colon is one of the ways to bring the body in balance. We also carry organic supplements to help you get where you need to go. So do your body a favor. Log on to GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com. You can even visit our sales page to save some dough. Does anybody call money dough anymore? Anyway, log on to getthetea.com, shop, get balanced, then learn some cool tips at Health Matters Now. You'll be glad you did. That's getthetea.com.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I only drink Fade to Black blend coffee from River Moon. Just click on the River Moon coffee banner at jimmychurchradio.com. Promo code F2B Blend.
This is the only way forward.
This is Fade to Black. Make contact.
This is Billy Carson, founder and CEO of Forbidden Knowledge, and we're heading to Egypt this October. Come join Jimmy Church, myself, and the Forbidden Knowledge team as we spend a week exploring Giza, the Great Sphinx, the Great Pyramid, Saqqara, Dashur, Aswan, Edfu, Dendara, Karnak, and we'll celebrate Jimmy's birthday in Luxor. The Forbidden Tour of Egypt is this October 5th through the 12th and includes a 4-day Nile cruise, expert Egyptologists, and a chance to explore Egypt with Jimmy and I as your host through your journey of a lifetime. Space is limited, so make your reservation now. Please visit forbiddenknowledge.com for information and complete itinerary. That's forbiddenknowledge.com.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and this year, June 18th, 2022, the Disclosure Fest Foundation presents the Mass Meditation Initiative. It's Saturday, June 18th from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., one day only at the Los Angeles State Historic Park in downtown Los Angeles, California, right next to Chinatown. I'm hosting the event again this year with music performances by Trevor Hall, The Desert Dwellers, Poran Gi, and many, many more on 4 separate stages. There's 16 stages in total, over 30 acres in downtown Los Angeles, with vendors and tents and presentations and workshops with Billy Carson, Adam Apollo, Lori Spagna, Laura Eisenhower, Brad Olson, David Palmer, and many, many more. It's all simple to do. Just go to disclosurefest.org for all of your tickets, information, and a full schedule of the day's events. Again, disclosurefest.org.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why Fade to Black? Because you never got that pony, damn
it. This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. What a great show tonight. Great conversation with Don Ecker. And, you know, Don, we have a problem. I'm just going to let you know, we have a problem, my man. I don't want to run out of time. Can I keep you for an extra segment at the bottom of the hour? Is your wife going to?
It depends. Are you going to send me a check?
I will send you. We're neighbors. I'll buy dinner. So let's get. Okay. So it's you, Richard Saraday. You guys road trip to Vegas. You meet this individual. I'm just doing a little recap in a restaurant. Big dude, cowboy hat, and he pops in, says, "Are you Don? Let's go." What happens next?
Well, we get back to his apartment. He's living with his girlfriend. This was not a kid. This guy was probably in his 40s. And I could tell immediately he was dirt poor. Okay. We walk in his apartment. He reaches in his jacket and he pulls out a .357 Magnum revolver.
Oh.
And all of a sudden, I'm paying attention. Okay, what the hell's this guy doing with a .357? Well, he had himself convinced, I think. All right, I put on my cop hat that these pictures he had potentially were dangerous. Okay, so anyway, he sticks the pistol up in a closet, and Rich and I are looking at each other. And I said, well, okay, guy, let's take a look at those pictures. Well, he pulls them out of a leg in the table. Now, I gotta mention this. I said he was dirt poor. They were so dirt poor, and obviously the guy didn't have a job, wasn't working. They had been breaking up furniture to build a fire with. Okay, that's poor.
So, and that's how they found the pictures, I'm guessing.
Exactly.
Because that was my next question. What would make somebody think about, pulling a table leg off of a table that you just bought to look for something? But it was for firewood. Holy crap.
Exactly.
Okay, gotcha.
So he pulls these photos out, and I look at them. Now, I'm not a photo analyst, all right? But it was obvious. These were photographs taken from the bombing range, probably from an aircraft flying over examining. They were testing, I guess the Air Force was testing dropping conventional high explosive bombs. And I'm trying to think, how do I tell this guy nicely that there's nothing here that we would be interested in? So we chat a little bit, and I told him, I said, look, there's really nothing here, okay? There are some buildings I see in the distance. I see some craters, but there's nothing here that would tie in with the UFO topic. So he was disappointed by that. I said, what were you thinking about doing? He said, well, I thought maybe you could buy him for like $10,000. I said, $10,000? Pal, if I had 10 grand, I'd be down at the casino. I wouldn't be here. So anyway, Rich and I each ended up giving the guy $20. Okay. I really felt bad for him. All right. But Rich reached in his wallet, he pulled out a 20 and he said, here, he said, maybe you can take your girlfriend out and get a bite to eat or something. And I said, yeah, let me contribute too. And I pulled out 20, and he thanked us, and he gave me the photographs. He gave them to me. There was nothing there, but he gave them to me. So we stopped at a restaurant. We had a nice steak dinner. And by this time that day, I would guess, and Rich was a coffee lover, we must have had between us 3.5, 4 gallons of coffee. So we leave Vegas. We're driving up the highway, and we get to Zizek's Road. Now, you know where that is.
Oh, yes,
right?
I do. One of my favorite. Is it Zizek's or is it Syzygy?
Zizek's.
Yeah, well,
that's the way I've always pronounced it.
Yeah, I think I've always tried to find the correct. It's a very famous exit and area, everybody, between Los Angeles and Las Vegas. It's ZZYZX Road.
Wait, there's more.
Yeah, well, hold on. I can't wait. You know what? I've actually pulled off and driven down to the Salt Flats down there just to check it out. Okay, so what happens?
We decide we need to take a comfort stop. And it's dark, okay? And it's getting chilly. And we pull off there, and we only intend to be there long enough to relieve ourselves. And the sky, Jimmy, there is spectacular.
I can imagine, yes.
And a jet was flying in from L.A. to Vegas, overflew us, and we're standing there and we're oohing and wowing at the stars. And all of a sudden, Rich says, hey, did that star move? And I said, what star? And he pointed up, and his car at that time had an antenna on it for the radio. And I got behind the antenna like a rifle sight, okay? And I look, and sure as God made little green apples, that light was moving, all right? But then it wasn't just that light. There were about 6 or 8, and they were tiny lights, were swirling around and moving. One would fall down like in a falling leaf motion and then shoot back up. And Rich and I are looking at each other and, you gotta be kidding me. And then another jet came over. And Jimmy, those lights froze in place. They froze. I couldn't believe it until the jet was past. And then they started doing that little dance again. Well, we thought we were only there 10 or 15 minutes. And I looked at my wristwatch and I said, hey, dude, you ain't gonna believe this one. He said, what? I said, we've been here almost 50 minutes. He said, no. And I said, look. And he looked. Time it just seemed to skip right out. So we get back in the car. Rich is driving. Now, this is the weird part.
Oh, it gets weirder. Okay.
We get up on the highway. Nothing traveling. It's empty. We start driving down the highway. Suddenly, we're enveloped in a fog. I mean, it was so bad that Rich couldn't see 3 feet in front of him. Now, it was his wife's car, okay, that we were in. So I wasn't about to drive it, man. Something happened. I didn't want any of that. So, and then I just faded. I passed out. And Rich, and we talked about this on my show. He grabbed me, Don, hey, Don, wake up. Nothing, okay? He wanted me to get out and walk down the side of the road to make sure that we didn't run into anything. And, buddy, I was gone. I have no recollection of this. And considering all the coffee I had had that day, it was weird. So finally, he got out of the fog. When he did, I woke right up. I was wide awake. And he told me about that. And I said, oh, man, I might have dozed off for a minute. He said, man, I'm telling you, you were gone. So we never figured that out. We get home, and I thought, well, that'll be it. I showed the pictures to Vicki, and she said, yeah, there's nothing here. And I said, yeah, I know. And then I told her that story, and she just kind of shrugged it off. What are you going to do with it? But it was very, very strange. It was like somebody put a finger on me and said, you're gone. And that was it.
Now, the UFO community, which we're going to talk more about this as we move on, but is, I think, a little taken aback today about these peaks and valleys and these ebbs and flows that we've been going through the last 4, 5, 6 years with information. But I have done my best, Don, to remind everybody that we have gone through this many times before, and we're just going to continue to move forward and try to get the answers that we seek. And I remind them of Bill Moore at MUFON in Vegas, right, in '89, or the MJ-12 documents. I brought up Jamie Chandray so many times on this show, I can't tell you about the excitement and the things that this community has gone through in the past, where this is it. This is finally it. And we've done all of this before, haven't we?
Oh, yeah, many times. Many times. You know, I didn't meet him face to face, but I had a number of phone conversations with him. Now, Jimmy, if you're honest with me, you will be honest in the fact that Don Ecker has a reputation, doesn't he?
That's right.
Kind of a hard-ass reputation.
I would say that is true, sir.
Okay. I did everything in my power to bring Luis Elizondo on my show. Now, I've had a number of conversations with him, and the only way to say it is the guy's been avoiding me. Now, a lot of people that have interviewed Lou basically interviewed Lou kind of softball.
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
That's not my style. I want to know. Okay. I want to know what exactly do you know that you can talk about? Now, I had a top security clearance with a crypto access when I was in the Army. And I know that there are things that you simply cannot discuss, no matter how many years it's been, okay, if you signed the documents. And Lou was in one of those positions. But Lou also, with Chris Mellon and with, Tom DeLong, but he doesn't really count, okay, the guy from the Skunk Works and Hal Putoff, all right, all have intelligence backgrounds, okay. They did that television show, Unidentified, okay, a couple of seasons, and I've got those. I TiVo'd them. I've got every one of them, and I periodically go back and review them. And I put on my military hat and I put on my cop hat, and I watched them with a jaundiced, skeptical eye. And you know, the one continuing drumbeat with every one of those shows was an implied threat by these objects.
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. An implied threat. Now, I know some things about how intelligence works. I know some things about how things are done to get the public behind something. Basically, what it turns out to be a lot of the time is propaganda. So I came to the conclusion that these guys in that series, Unidentified, and to a much lesser extent today as freelance, all right, they're no longer on the tube, they either know something that this was a long-term project, maybe not so long-term, to prepare the public for something that they suspected was coming down the highway, or this is the biggest dog and pony disinformation show, okay, since the fake Normandy invasion, all right, the Pas de Calais, all right, to confuse the Germans. There's something, one or the other, okay, one or the other. And I tried to get Elizondo on, and I think he's been intentionally avoiding me because he knows I won't throw him softballs.
I think that it's a very interesting point that you bring up, and I have voiced the same concerns with Lou over the years, and he has certainly heard those things from me. Since then, we have agreed to disagree. But he's been on the show, I don't know how many dozens of times, and I just produced a movie and with him in it, and I have chosen to push as hard as I can. It's up to him to answer the questions, right? I can only take it as far, just like you're saying, right? And I think that others out there that interview Lou, back to your point, are a little intimidated by Lou because of the celebrity stature that he's in right now, and choose to throw the softballs because they don't want to offend him. Well, that's the wrong approach. You need to go absolutely direct. If he can't answer, he can't answer, but you have to take the position of asking the questions. And I agree. He would be a great guest for you. You may not get the answers that you're looking for, but he would be a great guest because that has always been your approach. It always has been. I used to go back and listen to programs of yours and learning where you, I think that there was a certain amount of, what's the word I want to use? Anger's not the right word, but you were driven by an absolute quest for the truth, right? And you were absolutely focused on that. And I learned a lot from that. So, yeah, I agree. I think Lou would be a great guest. And I think that the two of you actually would get along. Believe it or not. I think it would be a good show.
Well, I basically, through Tracy Torme, Tracy has had apparently a closer friendship with him. They've been in touch quite a bit. And so as a matter of fact, I still have Lou's phone number right now. I haven't called him in months because, you can only, I had, in full disclosure, I've called him a couple of times. I had some concerns on my mind, and he answered, and he said, "Oh, I can't talk right now. I'm in the middle of something. I'll give you a call this weekend." And that happened on 3 occasions, and he never called. So you can only be brushed off at the door so many times, and then you just get the opinion, well, it doesn't look like this is going to happen.
Right.
So
Right. Well, here's the thing. When we look at the movement that is happening with, we'll talk more about this after the break, of course, but with the Senate Intelligence Committee, with the Department of Defense, with the Navy, and these conversations that are happening right now in Washington, D.C., with your background, you've given me 2 questions, right, about what may be going on. But with that, I have to ask why. In either scenario, right? In either scenario, they know that something's coming down the pike, coming down the highway, and they need to get out in front of this. Well, why? Why?
Well, over the years, and I'm sure I'm not saying anything to you that you don't know, I have been told off and on for 30 years that there are 6 or 7 groups of extraterrestrials that are dropping by. Now, what in the hell does that mean? Okay, are we just off the interstellar highway?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, do we got the local 7-Eleven here that they drop by to use? What? And I have no way of knowing. But I've talked to some people over the years, some people that, let's just say we're in a position to know, that have told me confidentially, well, our best guess is that there are a couple of groups that come by that are totally benign. They're just, and then there's a group or so that are quote unquote our buddies. Okay. And then there's 1 or 2 that just, quite frankly, don't care one way or the other. But there is one group that have an enmity and a loathing for the human race. And I said, oh, really? Now, this apparently is the group that Ingo Swann was referring to, that had quite a bone to pick with us because of our side talent. Apparently, according to Swann, they were very psychically gifted, and they saw this as a potential adversarial relationship. Now, once again, Jimmy, this is speculation on my part. I don't know. But if you're asking me, does it make sense to me? Yes, it does. But I can believe that there is a group that does not have a high regard for the human species. back in 90, I think it was 91 or 92, I did an article on, and it was a whole slew of cases where people were either extraordinarily injured or harmed or even killed in encounters with unidentified flying objects. And I'm not just talking about in the sky, I'm talking about on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So who's to say? I don't know.
Now, what is that enough, though, to institute this constant threat narrative? Or is the threat narrative what is needed to get the attention of Washington, D.C. and the Pentagon to get them not only interested in this, but certainly a way for funding and to move forward? Because if they're kind and peace-loving and it's unicorns and flowers, then that's not going to get the interest of the government.
Well, you know, look, there's something else. There's another little aspect that I haven't mentioned. I'm going to mention it now. A few years ago, Nick Redfern is the one that brought it up. It got my attention that there is a group within the Pentagon that are known by the moniker the Collins Elite. Are you familiar with them?
I have heard it mentioned, yes.
Okay. These are apparently extremely devout Christians in the military. And they see the UFO phenomena as a demonic, okay, from hell, from the devil, a demonic aberration, and we should have nothing to do with it. Now, Elizondo told me that when he was involved with the ATIP program, that he spoke and he said, if I told you the guy's name, you'd recognize him. I said, okay, well, I'm not going to ask. He said, but this was a high-level, high-ranking military officer that told me that I should not fiddle with this because it is a demonic deception. And that hit me wrong. That hit me wrong. I couldn't believe that somebody in the military at the high rank that this person allegedly was have a unknown phenomenon that you just simply wouldn't explore because you were afraid it might be connected to the devil. To me, okay, that's not what an intelligence officer or a military officer does. They follow it to the logical conclusion. What did they do? They swore an oath to the Constitution of the United States to protect and defend up to and including their life if the Constitution or our nation is in peril.
Right.
I took that oath.
Right.
So, you know, there just something there was wrong as far as I was concerned.
Now, let's take our break right here. And what is interesting about that, Don, is Tom DeLonge on this program told the same story and said that there are those concerned in the Pentagon that we are making contact with stuff that we do not know what the result will be. And we need to be very, very careful. And that there was a religious component to this. And just like you, I was shocked. And I think that was one of the most quoted portions of the interview with Tom was that religious aspect to the UFO phenomenon. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We're going to head into overtime with Don Ecker. Stay right there. This is Fade to Black.
listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the X.
Hey, what up, y'all? It's your girl Vivica Fox here, and you are listening to my boy, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
This is Billy Carson, founder and CEO of ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. ForbiddenKnowledge.tv is the fastest growing and one of the most watched networks in the world. I would like to personally invite you to check out our expanding library of TV, film, lectures, and special presentations. ForbiddenKnowledge.tv has over 6,000 videos covering lost history, health, UFOs, spirituality, and our future. We are committed to our community, and with my personal invitation, you can, right now, get your free 30-day membership at ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Your own library of information starts today at ForbiddenKnowledge.tv.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I take Life Change Tea supplements every single day. It's what I do. Click on their banner at jimmychurchradio.com.
Are you ready to read about true paranormal events? Unex Media publishes nonfiction books about UFOs, ghosts and haunted places, time anomalies, cryptid creatures, and more. Just like KUNXDB Radio, it's all about unexplained phenomena. Visit www.unxmedia.com to see our list of great book titles by Debbie Ziegelmeyer, Gene Walker, Devin Listrom, Wayne Lawrence, Bill Spicer, and yours truly, Margie Kay. That's unxmedia.com.
When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today.
This is Billy Carson with ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Forbidden Knowledge TV has just reached its 1-year anniversary. That's right, 1 year. And as a show of appreciation, we are giving all new subscribers a free 30-day trial of ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. That's 30 days to binge watch thousands of movies, documentaries, conferences, workshops, lectures, yoga classes, meditation courses, and so much more. So log on to ForbiddenKnowledge.tv from your computer or mobile device, or get the Forbidden Knowledge TV app on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon, iTunes, or Google Play today, and use coupon code 30daysfree. That's coupon code 30 days free on ForbiddenKnowledge.tv today.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
This is Kristen, Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Don Ecker is with us, heading into overtime tonight. And thank you, Don, for hanging out with us. I'm just not ready to let this conversation end. And
time and a half, right?
Yeah, time and a half. Checks in the mail. Checks in the mail. I promise. You brought up DD-214s earlier, and here we have somebody's background always needs to be vetted and checked. And I just want to make this comment really brief before we move on. When we have somebody like Lou and Chris Mellon come along, whose background is very public and can be checked and vetted, this is pretty much a first for the UFO community. And it's an interesting one, and I still say that we need to ride this out. History will be able to look back and see what is actually going on here. But there's another part to this for me, and that's Avi Loeb. Because somebody else, here he is, a physicist from Harvard, has published this book, Extraterrestrial, about Oumuamua, and his approach to this being quite possibly manufactured, and our first visitor, and this wasn't a natural object or a rock or what have you. And that pedigree of Avi is right there. This is Harvard, and he's now started the Galileo Project. So now we have multiple things happening at the same time, Don, where we've got Chris Mellon, we've got Lou Elizondo and their background, and we've got Avi Loeb at the same time approaching this too as well. What do you make of that? And that finally the UFO community has got the support that it's never had before.
Well, okay, you make an excellent point. As a matter of fact, not too awfully long ago, I made the point of saying that I broke two absolutely huge stories in the UFO field back in 91, and then another one in 92. The one I broke in November of 91 involved at that time, it was still the Soviet Union had sent 2 Mars probes to Mars, Phobos 1 and Phobos 2. And at the time, nobody in the West was aware how tightly NASA was tied into that program. That came out later. As a matter of fact, after the Iron Curtain fell, I met, and as a matter of fact, got her first gig on television, Dr. Marina Popovich. Now, a lot of people may not today know who Marina was. Originally, she was married to General Pavel Popovich, the first human being and Russian who back in 61, 62 rendezvoused and hooked up with another spacecraft in their space program. She had trained as a cosmonaut, but she has been described as the Russian female Chuck Yeager.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as much as it pains me to say, probably a lot of people today don't know who Chuck Yeager was. Chuck Yeager was the guy who first broke the sound barrier in his rocket plane, the glamorous Glennis, back in '47. First man, first human being to fly faster than the speed of sound. And Marina had dozens, if not tens of dozens, of aviation records that she had cracked. Now, I met her when she came to the United States in April of, I think it was 91. She was appearing at some venue down in Arizona. We flew down to Arizona, and I met her. And at the time, she spoke very limited English, very limited. But there was, obviously, there was a translator down there, and I was able to interview her over 2 days. And when I mentioned the Phobos 1 and Phobos 2 probes to her, she about had a conniption right there. She had no idea that anybody in the West knew about those. Now, Phobos 1, both these probes were going to Mars. And the first probe, Phobos 1, basically the Russians lost it roughly a month after launch, and they blamed that on a combination of computer error and human operator error. It just went away. It's gone. But Phobos 2 got there, okay? And when it did, it went into orbit around Mars, and there were a number of scientific packages on that craft that were both Russian and American. Now, here was the dirty little secret at the time that nobody knew about. NASA and Glavcosmos had been in talks about sending a joint American astronaut, a Russian cosmonaut team to Mars. And they were talking about going around 2014, 2015. Well, obviously that never happened. But back in 89, 88, that was the thinking. And on board this craft, Phobos 2 was an extremely powerful Russian laser. And this laser, the thinking was they were going to use this laser to fire a series of blasts on the Phobos moon to see what in the heck it was made out of, because the original thinking was we'll land on Phobos and then use Phobos as a stepping stone to go down to the surface of Mars. But then the shoe got thrown in the gears. An object appeared. An object that, quite frankly, the Russians couldn't believe their eyes. It was described as, and I'm not going to use the kilometer size, 15.5 miles in length and 1 mile in diameter. And they took a photograph of it just before this object turned toward Phobos and rammed it. Okay? Destroying it. Now, that's not Don Ecker saying that. That came from Glavcosmos. They said that whatever that thing was rammed their spacecraft. Now, and a little more about that.
Okay, this is where I need to jump in. There is a photograph that was taken.
I got that.
Right. And when you see this photograph, and this is part of urban legend and UFO lore, but the Russians happened to capture this object and get an image of it. When you saw the image, what went through your mind?
Well, before I tell you that, let me tell you this.
Okay.
Zachariah Sitchin, do you know who that is?
Of course, yes, of course.
Okay. Zach and I were friends since 1989, when I was on my first appearance on Larry King Live, and it was being hosted by Pat Buchanan. And curiously enough, it dealt with the Russians. It dealt with an alleged landing of a UFO in the Soviet city of Voronezh. Okay, it made international news. The American news networks, back when they still occasionally, talked about a little news that was happening, talked about that story. People like Dan Rather, who any other time would have been, blowing snot out his nose, laughing, okay, they talked about it seriously because it came from TASS. It came from the official Communist Party newspaper or news service. Now, the Russians were not known for their sense of humor, so they were reporting it as they saw it. Now, Zecharia Sitchin had just had a book in his series called The Earth Chronicles. One of his books had just been published, Genesis Revisited. And Zach and I were talking frequently on the phone. He lived in New York. And when he would come out here on the West Coast, we always would get together. And he said, Don, go to page such and such. You will see this photograph of this elliptic shadow on Mars. So I went to page such and such, opened it up, and whatever that thing was that the Russians photographed was casting a bloody shadow on the atmosphere of Mars. Now, yes, ladies and gentlemen, Mars does have a bit of an atmosphere. It's not one that we can breathe, but it's there.
Right.
And it was reflected. And the other thing that Sitchin told me, and he wrote about it in the book, when Phobos 2 was orbiting Mars, it was photographing and taking readings. And Sitchin said, and they found hotspots. And he said, what? Hotspots. Hotspots. And I said, hotspots on Mars. Now, if you talk to any geologist or whomever, they'll tell you Mars is a dead planet, right?
Right.
Mars is dead. Now, hotspots could only mean one of two things. That there's volcanism going on under the surface, and there's no proof of that whatsoever, or there's something artificial there. Sitchin was convinced that ancient space bases had been once again put back into action by the visitors. That the hotspots were actually alien installations. Now, you're never going to hear anything about that from NASA, okay, never. But, and maybe it's not true, but he was convinced it was. Now, that, I broke that story on Larry King Live in November of '91. The next year, in June, I broke another huge story that, and there's a point to this, Jimmy, that involved STS-48. This was a space shuttle mission that encountered some unidentifieds while it was flying above Australia and New Zealand. And then something appeared to fire at the unidentifieds. And they took explosive, evasive maneuvers. This was played on King too. Now, at that time, Vicki and I had a source back in D.C. who wrote for defense publications. The guy had an intelligence background. I still occasionally talk to him. And a few days after my appearance on King, with Jim Oberg, okay?
Right.
And him and I got into it pretty good on that show. Oberg was, as far as I was concerned, nothing more than a NASA shill, okay, contract scientist, had been an Air Force nuclear officer, so he had the clearances, all right? And he was doing everything he could do to make me look like a fool on that program. But after that broadcast, I got a call from our source, and a few days later, and he said, well, what have you heard about that since you've been on Larry King? And I said, well, to tell you the truth, pal, I haven't heard a word. He said, well, you'd be interested to know. You managed to really piss off a bunch of people at the Pentagon with that story. And I said, I did. He said, oh, yeah, you did. And guess what? Right after that show, the link that had fed that live video down from that mission was encrypted. Since my appearance on Larry King Live in June of '92, you have never seen another live feed uncensored from NASA, ever. So that told me all I needed to know, that there was something there. You better believe it.
Yeah, that video is incredible. I mean, it looks like something's getting fired on.
It was.
Yeah, for sure. Back to the Phobos photograph, though. What went through your mind when you looked at it the first time?
Honestly, what went through my mind, I don't think we would want to piss those guys off.
Right. And they undoubtedly took out Phobos too. Now let's talk about Phobos for a second. Buzz Aldrin has been pretty vocal about it. And you look at the monolith on Phobos. Do you think that is a natural phenomenon, or if it is, the Arthur C. Clarke,
well,
monolith?
Before I answer that, let me give you a little vignette about Buzz. Buzz Aldrin, who was the second human being to step out on the moon in Apollo 11, immediately following Neil Armstrong. Armstrong was already gone, had already passed on when we did the 2014 The Truth Revealed Aliens on the Moon show. Buzz Aldrin appeared on that program, as rightly he should have. He was the second human being to step on the moon. Now, the producer took to him my photograph of the pipe running through the crater I had mentioned earlier. And there were a number of other photographs that showed, one, Jimmy, showed an object rolling up and out of a crater, crossing the lunar landscape, leaving a tread track mark in the dirt. A vehicle of some kind. The only thing it could have been, a vehicle. Our vehicle? Nah, probably not. Maybe somebody else's. When the producer set those in front of Aldrin and asked him to comment on it, he violently twisted his head and refused. Now listen to what I'm telling you. He refused to look at those pictures. He said, get them away from me. Get them away from me. I don't want to, I'm not looking at them. And then the only thing he would talk about was that thing on Phobos, on the moon. He wouldn't talk about the moon. The guy was the second human being to land on the damn moon.
Right.
And he wouldn't talk about it. Now, what's that tell you? You got to look at it. What does that say? Number one, either somebody got to him in a big way, or somebody fiddled with their memories when they came back from the moon. Remember, they were in isolation for weeks.
Yeah,
when they first came back.
That press conference, to this day, Don, I look at that press conference and you could tell they were upset. And instead of, we just got back from the moon, right? They should have been in party mode. They were the heroes of planet Earth, right? And instead they were forlorn, right? I can't explain it, how disconnected they were at that press conference.
Well, I think in part it's because they encountered things that they simply couldn't comprehend when they got up there. They were being observed. somebody was keeping an eye on what they were doing.
The back to the monolith. I want to ask you this kind of directly, and we're out of time. When we look at 2001: A Space Odyssey. By the way, today's the anniversary. This was the date of the premiere worldwide of 2001: A Space Odyssey. The considerations of the monolith and how it's presented by Arthur C. Clarke, who I think knew things, by the way. But the way that he presented the monolith, not only here on Earth, but how it's revealed on the moon, and then this object is there on Phobos, it seems beyond coincidence. Do you think that Arthur knew something, and do you think that this monolith is artificial, that it is some type of intelligence?
Well, obviously, I have no knowledge of it, but I will tell you this. I've looked at that object, whatever it is, as closely as I was able, and it was on computer screens. Okay, so I was limited there. It looks artificial. I would be more than fascinated if I could examine something like that close up. Apparently, it's pretty big.
Yeah, it's pretty big. It's pretty tall.
To a human being.
Yeah. And you would think, Don, that with the technology that we have today, we've got the Mars Surveyor program and other countries that are mapping and photographing everything that they can out at Mars, that they would have gone back and done some high res. How about a live stream, right?
Hey, why did we go back to the moon in '96 with Clementine, completely re-photograph the entire moon with the most sophisticated spy satellites that American technology could produce, then keep most of those photographs under lock and key? Not a good reason why they went back. And, you know, I was going to tell you about my buddy, Dr. John Brandenburg, physicist, who incidentally was also the guy that discovered, and we don't have time tonight, but the guy that discovered that somebody set off 2 nuclear detonations on Mars, proved it beyond a shadow of a doubt, okay, sometime in the distant past, 2 nuclear detonations on Mars. But Brandenburg was the administrative assistant to the director of the Clementine mission, and they were not even allowed to see the photographs that were coming back from that mission. They had them locked away. So, Jimmy, yeah, here's the bottom line, pal. You want to know the bottom line? I'm going to tell you the bottom line right now for everybody to hear.
Give it to me, Don.
We are being kept in what is known as the mushroom syndrome, kept in the dark and fed copious amounts of bovine excrement in every endeavor in American society.
Don Ecker. Now, Don, I can't wait for our next conversation on the show, and I'll let everybody know that what Don and I discussed, the next subject, he said, would actually take about 4 months of airtime. So we will do just that next time around, Don, and we'll focus on one subject and have a lot of fun with it. Thank you so much, and thank you for everything that you have brought to this community and our planet. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Don Ecker. And with that, we just went pole to pole. I've got to get straight out of here and get to the credits. I want to thank Don and Don's show, Dark Matters Radio, Friday evenings on KUNX. You can get all of your information over at the UNX Network right there for Don Ecker. I want to thank Don for coming in tonight and, of course, staying through to overtime. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee, Dennis, and Kevin. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vito, and Mark D. Kovar. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. This broadcast owned and copyrighted 2022 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tomorrow night, I haven't done this in 6 years. We're going to discuss the flat earth. Is flat earth still a thing? Good thing I didn't do that tonight with Don Ecker. That would have been a whole nother show. This is Fade to Black. I'm yours, Jimmy Church. Until tomorrow night, I want you to be safe. It's time to fade to black.